All right, we have big breaking news tonight. Wall Street Journal just out with a major report. Here's the headline. Trump lawyers seek deal with Mueller to speed end of Russia probe. Now, White House sources, they're pushing back on some aspects of the story, but here is what we are being told at this hour. Negotiations are underway on how the president will be questioned by the special counsel, Robert Mueller, and they are close to now determining what is going to happen. My interpretation of all of this, it means this witch hunt could finally be wrapping up, because the president would be the last person that Mueller would want to talk to. And by the way, to me, that means that a conclusion is probably coming soon, and that would mean, yeah, Donald Trump did not collude with the Russians. A big development we're following closely tonight. And also more breaking news on a bombshell development that we broke on this program last night. Sarah Carter will join us. She has new information about the Uranium One informant that is said to have proof of a Clinton Foundation quid pro quo. Now, Victoria Tunsing, who will also join us, the lawyer for the informant, is revealing that her client, William Campbell, was interviewed in December of last year by the FBI in Arkansas as part of an ongoing investigation into the Clinton Foundation. Ongoing. Now, because the information this informant has, Democrats preemptively in the media, they're now trying to discredit this informant who spent decades of his life serving his country. You have congressional Democrats releasing a memo yesterday to the Hill trashing this informant, William Campbell's credibility. Now, these smears were then picked up on and published by liberal outlets like the Washington Post, predictably CNN, Fake News, Reuters, and Yahoo. Now, here's the one thing that none of those organizations ever reached out to Victoria Tunsing for a comment. Now, we're going to give her a chance to defend her client completely against an untrue smear. What this is a partisan left-wing attack just designed to protect Hillary Clinton, her foundation, and what they did. It never made sense to give 20% of our uranium to Russia. And the left in this country, they know this FBI informant. He was in Putin's network. He has damaging information on the Clintons that potentially could send them to jail. So they're lashing out. Now, Victoria Tunsing, Sarah Carter will have the details. That's coming up tonight. Now, we also have new information on another major breaking news story. Special counsel Jeff Sessions, he's continuing to suggest that he is strongly now considering doing what we have been saying for a long time needed to be done. That would be appointing a second special counsel to investigate rampant FISA abuses and abuse within the FBI and the DOJ. Here's what we know. The FBI lied to the FISA court by using an unverified dossier bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton to get a warrant to spy on an associate of the Trump campaign during an election. The FBI broke the FISA law, and they also did not follow the Bureau's own protocols by relying heavily on what was something that they themselves should have verified and corroborated. Now, remember, former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, he's testified without the dossier, they wouldn't have even had a FISA application. A huge development, major scandal. I know the media ignores it. They'll have egg on their face. And another breaking story tonight, President Trump finally has issued a pardon for Christian Saucier. This is an issue we talked about for a long time. You might remember our extensive coverage of this case. Now, Saucier is a former U.S. Navy sailor. He was convicted of a felony and in prison for a year for, quote, mishandling classified information. He took a few photos where he worked inside a submarine, 40-year-old submarine, that were discovered on Saucier's discarded cell phone. He didn't give it to anybody. Now, this became a huge issue on the 2016 campaign trail, highlighting a major disparity in our criminal justice system. Remember, Hillary Clinton mishandled an enormous amount of top-secret, special access, classified information on that unauthorized private server. And then she deleted 33,000 subpoenaed emails. And she received no punishment because James Comey, Peter Strzok and company, well, the fix was in and they rigged the outcome. Now, meanwhile, Saucier did a fraction of what Clinton did. He was sent to prison for a year. And thankfully, President Trump today, and rightly today, he corrected this injustice, and Christian Saucier can now move on with his life. Now, even more breaking information to tell you about. Fox News reporting the House Intel Committee, they are sending 10 key questions about the dossier to 2 more Obama administration officials. One of them, who worked as a key advisor for Barack Obama and Joe Biden, is actually married to a senior Fusion GPS employee. Now, this is drawing comparisons to demoted DOJ official Bruce Orr and his wife Nellie, who worked on that fake news dossier for Fusion GPS. Now, the other official served as a former national security advisor to Biden, so this scandal is getting bigger and bigger by the day. Now, the House Intel Committee Chairman Devin Nunes revealed earlier this week that he has received some responses about the dossier from some top Obama officials. Others, so far, refusing to comply. So Nunes is now threatening to issue subpoenas, which he should do. And finally, President Trump's major win with North Korea is sending the media into a hate-filled frenzy. The partisan press is absolutely going apoplectic over the fact that President Trump's peace-through-strength approach with dealing with little rocket man Kim Jong-un is now yielding positive results. We may have peace in the Korean peninsula. Now, this breaking news that the president is agreeing to meet with the North Korean dictator to discuss denuclearization is now apparently aggravating and incensing liberal lapdog media people, as they're physically and mentally incapable of reporting any positive news about this president. Watch this.
Is a roll of the nuclear dice. In some ways, the president kind of got boxed in here. He couldn't say no to this invitation.
I think the entire foreign policy community and a good deal of the informed public freaked out last night when they thought Trump was actually going to get in a room with this guy with no conditions and start talking.
We've just given Kim Jong-un something for nothing.
I'm very concerned about what this administration would be willing to barter away.
Why hasn't any other president ever done? Should I take that to mean that this might be a particularly risky or even an unwise move? But this is the president we have, and he said yes to North Korea.
Yeah, but he's not sending $150 billion in cash and other currencies, and he's not giving billions of dollars to the North Koreans. He gave nothing. But the destroyed Trump media, they love the policies of appeasement of Barack Obama and President Clinton, both of which have failed. At this point, it wouldn't be surprising if the media literally awarded Neville Chamberlain, a Profile and Courage Award for capitulating in his negotiations with Adolf Hitler in Munich. Like we have been saying, the media cannot stomach a leader that believes in peace through strength and stands up to dictators. All they want a president to grovel and cower and kiss Kim Jong-un's rings. President Trump is proving he won't do that, and as a result, he's winning. He got every condition he needed, and a discussion, about denuclearization would be good for the world. He's not going to repeat the absolutely idiotic and completely foolish mistakes of both Clinton and Barack Obama. Now, back in the 90s, Bill Clinton came up with a brilliant idea. Let's try and bribe Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, with billions of dollars in energy subsidies with the hopes that the North Koreans would abandon their nuclear program. President Clinton actually took a victory lap on national TV, patting himself on the back for brokering a great deal for the American people. He was wrong. Look.
This is a good deal for the United States. North Korea will freeze and then dismantle its nuclear program. South Korea and our other allies will be better protected. The entire world will be safer as we slow the spread of nuclear weapons.
Now, Bill Clinton's massive foreign policy blunder set the stage for North Korea to actually develop nuclear weapons, billions wasted, and he is directly responsible for the current situation we face today. Then, of course, there's President Appeasement himself, Barack Obama. He tried to outdo both Neville Chamberlain and Bill Clinton with a timid, feckless policy of appeasement towards Iran and the radical Muellers that are calling for death to America. The same people promising to wipe America and Israel off the map, who burn American and Israeli flags. In other words, they hate our guts. That didn't stop Obama from orchestrating one of the worst deals ever in the history of mankind. Now, the appeaser-in-chief, he gave Iran $150 billion while still allowing them to spin their centrifuges. Here's Obama surrendering to the radical mullahs, in case you're interested.
Today, after 2 years of negotiations, the United States, together with our international partners, has achieved something that decades of animosity has not. A comprehensive long-term deal with Iran that will prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon. This deal demonstrates that American diplomacy can bring about real and meaningful change. Change that makes our country and the world safer and more secure. This deal is also in line with a tradition of American leadership.
Now, unlike Neville Chamberlain, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama, President Trump is refusing. to give even an inch when it comes to countering North Korean aggression. Watch this.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire, fury, and frankly power, the likes of which this world has never seen before. If he does anything with respect to Guam or any place else that's an American territory or an American ally, he will truly regret it. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
Yeah, fury and fire for Rocket Man. And here's something the abusively biased news media will never tell you. Well, since the 1990s, Donald Trump has been warning about the growing threat posed by North Korea. Take a look.
These people in 3 or 4 years are going to be having nuclear weapons. They're going to have those weapons pointed all over the world and specifically at the United States. And wouldn't you be better off solving this really potentially unbelievable, and the biggest problem, I mean, we can talk about the economy, we can talk about Social Security. The biggest problem this world has is nuclear proliferation. And we have a country out there in North Korea, which is sort of wacko, which is not a bunch of dummies, and they are going out and they are developing nuclear weapons. And they're not doing it because they're having fun doing it. They're doing it for a reason.
And also tonight we have even more proof exposing the media's anti-Trump agenda. Now, according to the new Media Research Center study, 91% of ABC, NBC, CBS's evening newscast coverage about President Trump was negative in January and February. 91%. I've told you back a long time ago, journalism in America is dead. What we have now is a media that is only an extension of the Democratic Party. They regurgitate the talking points. Their singular purpose is to do what? Destroy President Trump at all costs, and the truth be damned, and all of these statistics prove it. Now, in the media's efforts to delegitimize, damage this president, they have all but blacked out any positive news coming from the White House. Just look at today's economic data. February's job numbers smashed expectations. 313,000 new jobs were created. That's the best monthly gain in over a year and a half. And since President Trump took office, 263,000 manufacturing jobs have been created. And a record 155 million Americans are now in the labor force. And here's a statistic the media will never tell you about. According to the Heritage Foundation, 64% of President Trump's agenda is already complete. That's faster than President Ronald Reagan himself, which is astounding. The media doesn't care. Instead, they're only hyper-focused on advancing their bizarre conspiracy theory about Trump-Russia collusion that has no evidence of ever happening. There's no evidence, has been no evidence. Now, while the media has been literally taking you, the American people, down this conspiratorial rabbit hole for over a year, here's what they've missed. Take a look at the side of the screen. Those are all of President Trump's accomplishments. Have you heard the media ever talk about any of these? I doubt it. The media spent the past year and a half trashing the president at every single turn. They absolutely refuse to give this administration credit for anything. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, nonstop, constant attacks, and a lot of lies. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. And sadly, well, it's only going to get worse. The more successful the president is, the harder the media is going to try to destroy him.